to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Coulter?
Here.
Sorry. Mr. Lovett?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Knight? Here. And Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from our August 30th, 2022 regular council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, those stand as written and distributed. Reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
First off, as required, the August 2022 Mayor's Court fines and totals are all in, and they will be provided to the clerk for placement in the minutes. Total of $17,485 collected through Mayor's Court in August. I am happy to report that our search for an assistant finance manager has come to a conclusion, and starting the first week of October, Luke Scholl will be joining us. He comes from Macy's was where he most recently worked, but before that, he worked with Plattenberg and Associates, who has been our auditor over the last several years. So he comes extremely well qualified and recommended. So we're excited to welcome Luke here in early October. I think the most excited to welcome Luke here is going to be Scott, as it will help take a lot of necessary responsibilities off of his plate, and we'll just add more for him to do as a result. But we're excited to be able to welcome Luke here in October. I know Jim sent out an email out to all of you, but for the purposes of the public notification, there is a probably better than small chance that there might be a national railroad strike happening and on Friday. And as we all know, the city of Sharonville has a number of train issues within our community, and they're probably going to be exacerbated should that occur. What is happening right now, or what we're hearing word of happening right now, is that in order to try to head off problems with supply chain issues, they are already making the trains longer than what they were too long in the first place. So that's going to obviously tie up our intersections. But also if there is picketing involved down in our rail yard and access to the rail yard from trucks and what that might mean by way of backup along Sharon Road and then potential consequences. So I know the police department is aware of it, and we are certainly looking into ways that we can minimize any disruption if disruption is there. But it is certainly a good possibility if the railroad does go on strike here in a couple of days. That is all I have, except I would request an executive session, assuming that our meeting doesn't run too long. But if we do have some time at the end, I would request an executive session to discuss the employment issue involving discipline of a city employee.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we'll move on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. Just legislation this evening. Ordinance 2022-45E deals with our FEMA project, and Scott is here to talk about that.
Good evening. You have two ordinances this evening to discuss, 45E and 46. 45E, as Jim mentioned, relates to the FEMA project. This appropriates the funds for the project in the 421 FEMA Capital Projects Fund. Section 3 authorizes the advance of funds from the general fund to this grant fund that will receive reimbursements from FEMA dollars through Ohio EMA, and then eventually a ODOT allotment once the project is satisfactorily completed. Then there's also a contingency we appropriated in the 401 fund to make sure we'd be able to kind of execute any acceptable contract. Section 2 authorizes the Safety Service Director to award the contract. Any questions or concerns about that item?
Thank you.
Ordinance 46, 2022-46, this appropriates some additional dollars in our tax rebate fund that we use to pay out tax refunds. We've had a higher than average activity in tax refunds. We've had solid collections, but good collections lead to more refunds. So we're in good shape from a fund balance standpoint, but we need to appropriate more dollars than we had in the original budget. So this is a good estimate. We think it would get us out of 9 of the last 10 years. We'll have better information in November if once the business returns that are due at the end of October come in.
Are there any questions about that? Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, ordinance 2022-47 is just the first reading this evening, but Chief Nesbitt and Mike Mathis are both here to briefly describe what they're recommending, dealing with the nightclub and nightclub promoters ordinance. As they're walking up, Mike has also drafted a letter that will be sent out to all food operators indicating that this potentially may impact them, and just giving them some advance warning that the second and third reading is coming up.
So the ordinance we've been working with, we felt we could use some revisions, more some definitions, some clarifications, so it was clear to us on how to best use it and how it would better be understood by those that are subject to it.
Turn it on.
Turn it on.
No, it's on.
It's on, I'm just not loud enough, sorry. We looked at the ordinance and we saw some areas that could be improved for clarification, help us to use it a little bit more effectively and for better understanding with those that are subject to it. So Mike's done a wonderful job. He broke down all of the various changes and found ways to make it better and stronger, better represent what the purpose and vision of the ordinance was in the first place. So he can take it from there.
Well, there were a few just basic typo, kind of grammatical issues to deal with, which have been changed. We do have a specific proof of insurance requirement now that's written into the ordinance that designates liability insurance that we would require a nightclub to carry. It outlines that. There's just some changes where before it said the safety service director would. Now we have the safety service director or his or her designee to give us more latitude within the organization as to who deals with this. And then I think really that's the main changes. We do have, let's see. There was a change to the section on, it was just clarifying whether a nightclub has to provide video to the police or city upon request. They have to do so within 48 hours. And then there's a small change to who could appeal this, and it's limited to the owner or permit holder to appeal a violation under this ordinance. And other than that, those are the basics. We have prepared a letter and a copy of the ordinance to be delivered to all potential businesses that could be affected by this. We'll get that out here within the next week so that they would have the next 2 council sessions if they wanted to come in and address council. So,
Mr. Lovett?
Would it also, you may already be doing this, would it also be possible to send us the letter in case somebody says something to us about what the letter says?
sure, I'll send it. I'll send the packet that we're going to send out to Mr. Lucas, and he can distribute that to the council.
Perfect, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you both.
Not necessarily on that, but while Mike is here, and so all of you know, the chief was at my regular Monday meeting the other day, and he had nothing but great things to say about you and the work that you're doing in this position that we've created. I think that you've done far and above what we expected, and we truly appreciate it. On a side note, I would say that when I'm wearing my other hat, there are other jurisdictions that are in and around our community that have also appreciated the help that you've given to them and investigations and things that they're working on. They specifically, not even knowing that I was in a room and I was the mayor of Sharonville, they made comment about our hotel liaison and the assistance that they were receiving from you on some work that they were doing. And so I was very pleased to hear that as well, just out in the community. So thank you for what you've done, Mike. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
During our review of the nightclub ordinance, it led to an issue within our chronic nuisance property ordinance that Casey is correcting in ordinance 2022-48E.
Basically, there's a section in that chronic nuisance chapter that talks about appeals to the magistrate in mayor's court. Mayor's court, under Ohio Revised Code, are courts of limited jurisdiction, so that's not really allowed. So that's why I'm asking you to change it. Thank you.
Okay, then the final two pieces of legislation voted on this evening. Ordinance 2022-50E deals with our OKI project traffic signal. Steve's here to talk about that briefly, as well as the next 122R20E.
Good evening. So you said OKI first. Yeah, the ordinance in front of you with, regarding the OKI grant we received back in 2021. That is for the traffic fiber and traffic signal upgrade project throughout the city. It would add fiber to along Kemper Road up to Station 86 and tie it into the police station. The ordinance in front of you would allow us to sign a design contract with CT Consultants for the design of that system. Gets us underway so that we can get moving on with getting the plans designed for the grant construction. Are there any questions on that?
We're all good. Thank you.
Sorry, you got the other one. Go ahead. You have another one you're going to talk about, then I'm going to go back and talk about one other one.
The
He may also.
resolution in front of you this evening is to allow us to pursue a OPWC grant for the repave and basically street improvement for Mosteller Road. This is from 275 north to Crescentville. It would be some curb repair, repave with some full depth repair as needed, as well as the reconstruction of the intersections, the traffic signals at Commerce and at Crescentville. The Commerce intersection is one of the oldest standing signals in the city. And down at Crescentville with the trucking depot down there, there are likely improvements that can be made to that traffic signal with a rebuild. So this is just a resolution giving us permission to go after grant funding. Kleinger's has helped us prepare that application for this round.
And with the guidance of Law Committee, we just decided on a 40% local match for that.
Any questions?
Stay there.
Yeah, you have a visual, I think, that he's going to be talking
Yeah.
about.
So with regard to the Crescentville Overpass that is on today, I know I've seen those images of what our portion of that's going to look like, so I'm not sure if, hopefully Law Committee has seen it, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
probably,
and Steve's
and got here, but I think Steve's got some drawings to show you what we are looking at doing. This will be as you come south on 75.
Yeah.
Into Sharonville, because it made sense for us to put up Sharonville signs for people that are coming into the city. Westchester is going to be doing the south side of the bridge, so as you're going north on 75. So even though this side of the bridge is in Westchester, it makes sense for
Yeah.
us to have Sharonville displayed as people enter into the city. So that's the work that's going to be done. I'm excited about it. I think it'll look pretty nice when it is all completed. So hopefully you will support those when that vote eventually comes up.
And Mr. Coulter, did you have a question before we move on?
No, I didn't, thank you.
Casey fixed it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's it for the legislations.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Lucas? Seeing none, we'll move on. I don't really have a report this evening. If you have not already heard, Mrs. Buhite is collecting our laptops tonight. and they're going to be updated with some new software, and then we will have them and learn how to use that new software so we can go digital again. So they're going to be working on that. We'll go with our clerk of council, Mrs. Booth.
Thanks for mentioning that. And the only other thing I have is announcing a public hearing set for October 25th at 7 PM in council chambers regarding the expansion of the Northern Lights Community Entertainment District. And that's
Thank
it.
you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our law director, Mr. Lippert.
Thank you. I don't have any report.
Perfect. Now's an opportunity, if you wish to be heard this evening before council, you're welcome to come up and give us your name and your address, and then you can address council. Don't everybody jump at once. We don't fight
Hello,
much.
my name is Marcus Pandolfo. I live in Sharonville at 10963 Main. I'm here because I was sent a citation warning for a violation for a vehicle being stored in my driveway. The vehicle is currently in use. It's always been in use. It's tagged, registered, insured. And it's, I called the city development, and I was told basically they would find a violation. The truck would be too long, too big, too high, is eventually what the conclusion was, that the truck was more than 7 feet tall. So I would like to find out how to appeal these violations for this vehicle. It's been located in Sharonville for about 4 years almost. I've never had an issue. My neighbors have never complained. I've used this vehicle to work out for, I painted Sharonville FOP with this vehicle. I don't see an issue, and I don't believe my neighbors do either.
Is it a work truck?
It is my vehicle that I work out of. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So,
Sure, I can.
go ahead.
Did you say your last name was Randolfo?
Pandolfo.
Pandolfo. This isn't necessarily supposed to be awkward, but if it goes the way I anticipate, I'll probably be prosecuting your case. So, that having been said, basically the way code violations work is if you have X amount of notice, you do get a citation and you get cited to mayor's court, where you're in front of a neutral magistrate and I'm responsible for proving the city's case. I don't know anything about this alleged violation at this point, but you have the right, just as anybody else who's cited or arrested with a offense, to dispute it. You do that by pleading not guilty and having a trial. And like I say, the neutral magistrate at that point makes a determination. That's about it.
Right, I understand that, sir. My goal here was to prevent it getting that far, obviously. As I said, I don't believe I'm in violation, and the violation warning was for the vehicle being stored. So I guess my goal is to find out how I can prevent it going further and receiving this violation, so I have to go to court and fight this.
That's a little bit outside of my purview.
So,
But
yeah,
And the
so-
mayor's looking it up.
Yeah, so, and I'm probably not gonna be able to
Yeah.
find the answer real quick. But, so my understanding is you've not been cited yet to court, right?
No, sir, I was
So-
giving a warning.
Right, and that is typically what we do, is the community development office and the vast majority of those notices go out because somebody called the community development department and said, hey,
Complained.
this truck is here and it violates the code. I wish we could say, and sometimes we are proactive in what's going on. I don't know your case one way or the other, whether that was the case or not. A lot of times it's somebody else that got cited for it and now they're driving around the community sharing that information with, well, this person is violating, this person violating too, okay? Regardless, there's a zoning code and it's there for a reason. We as council have decided that is, if it's 7-foot height or whatever it might be, when that zoning code went into effect, that was what we felt was appropriate for a residential area, right? Because there's different areas of town, different parts zoned residential, commercial, different kinds of vehicles that can be parked and or stored depending on what part of the town you're in. So at this point, where you're at is, community development has said, we think there's an issue here. You might want to address it before we cite you. I understand you've been to community development and you've had conversations with them specifically about what they think is the violation, right? You don't think it violates that, so if a citation comes, then it ends up coming to mayor's court, where you'll prove that you aren't in violation, and like Mr. Lippert indicated, he's representing the city as the prosecutor to prove that you are. You know, the other option, and I don't know if this council is going to want to take that up, is going to be, do we change our zoning code to allow something? Or the other option is that you look to receive a variance from our code, from the Board of Zoning Appeals. There's nothing guaranteed about that. There's a very strict guidelines within the code, and I know that the Community Development Department will be more than happy to show what it is you need to prove in order to get a variance from what's there. I would hope the Community Development Department would be a little clearer about what violation they saw that caused them to write the letter. I assume that it's Ms. Hollingsworth that sent, have you spoken directly with her about the
Yes,
issue?
Yes, sir. She was supposed to send me an email regarding the situation. If she did not, that's why I visited the office.
Okay, well, we could certainly follow up with her so that she can communicate directly with you about what it is she saw about the truck that was in violation of our code, so that you are aware of what concern exists there. And then that's kind of where it goes from there. I mean, that's,
Just one follow-up, unless she has the email address wrong, Donna did send an email yesterday at 2:52 explaining the violation in more detail. So we get to chat afterwards to make sure that she has the right, or the correct email address.
All right. All right, thank you.
I mean, I guess my question to you is your issue just your one specific truck that you think should be,
My
variance
issue-
should be applied, or is it, do you think this shouldn't be the code in the city of Sharon?
No, my issue, sir, is that I was giving a warning for one violation, and when I addressed that violation, then it became basically the city will find a violation with the vehicle. And that's exactly what they did. They pulled out a binder, and they sat and went down a list of code until they could find a reason with this vehicle to be in violation.
That
But
would
that's
bother me
not-
too.
But that is not what what they ended up telling me I was in violation for is not what I was given a warning for.
Yeah.
I just felt that was very unfair and unreasonable.
Was that Donna that did?
No, she was not there.
Okay, I thought I saw something where you had written she wasn't there.
She was not there at that
Okay.
time. No, ma'am. I had just spoken to her on the phone.
So you spoke to someone over there that probably does not know her job as well? Because Donna's the only one, yeah.
You know, who's in.
Donna's the only one that does that job, and she knows it like the back of her hand. So if you have not spoken to her since then, please get back with her, come down here, talk to her. She's here early in the morning. She's one of the first ones in, 7 o'clock. But I think it's worth sitting down and having a conversation with Donna.
Okay.
And I know you said she tried to email you, but sometimes things get misconstrued. I think having a sit-down meeting with Donna, and if you would like, we can even ask the Safety Service Director to sit in with you.
That's
If
okay.
you-
I'm sure I will find a day where she's here.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks.
Hi.
My name's Greg Shell. My wife Denise and I, we've lived at 1636 Valdosta for the last 24 years, and we've had an ongoing health and safety issue that's kind of bubbled up again. It's seasonal, but we were sitting on our front porch like old retired people do after the sun went down a couple weeks ago, and one of the friendly neighborhood skunks come within 3 feet of us. Skunks are a major problem in our neighborhood. Does the city of Sharonville offer any help in eliminating these pests, or is that the Department of the State, or what? the health and safety is they carry rabies.
And if you call the animal hotline, they call our police, and then our police come out, catch it, and take care of it. Yeah, but I mean, that would be the only people. Yeah, see, and I mean, if you call animal control, that's who they call, is they call our police department, unfortunately.
And which animal control are you talking about?
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County's animal control. Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Try them and see what they tell you.
Well, and we'll look, I mean, I can't give you an exact answer, but
Yeah.
now that we are aware of an issue, we can see if there are other solutions and other resources we can get out to you.
Yeah.
I would say it's nice to hear, I mean, not nice to hear, but that's not what I thought you would be saying when you came up here, because we know there are issues in your neighborhood of other issues that we are constantly and very diligently working on. So skunks are a new one. Is this a recent occurrence? Is this something that is?
The entire time we've been here, from time to time,
Okay.
especially on trash night, I believe they den over beside the mulch facility, that creek that runs along there. Every spring, there are dead ones on the road there on Chesterdale.
Yeah.
But we see them several times a year. And our little dog's been sprayed. We have a fenced-in backyard, and she got sprayed through the fence.
Oh, goodness.
And if you ever have it, odor exit, works like a charm.
Odor exit works, huh?
Reach out to public health
In
too.
15 minutes,
just
they don't smell.
Yeah, we can,
We'll reach out, make some contacts.
we're gonna make some contacts for you, but if
thank
you,
you.
I'm just telling you, when I had a raccoon met me at my garage door one day with a glass peanut butter jar on its nose, and I was not gonna break the jar. So I called animal control, and about 15 minutes later, 2 Sharonville patrol officers showed up at my door, and I'm like, what are y'all here for? And they're like, well, they said you have a raccoon, so they had a catcher, but I don't know who would go after a skunk. That's hazardous duty.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's a public works problem, isn't it?
Everything I've heard is on private property.
Thank you for coming in, though. We do appreciate it. Anyone else this evening wish to be heard? You're good? All right. We'll move on to our council committees. Community Development, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. We have a meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals, might be interest out there to someone, tomorrow at 6:30. There is no Planning Commission meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you. Community Services, Mr. Lovett.
I have no report tonight. Our next meeting is on 10. Huh?
Didn't you send me your report?
Oh, it's on file, sorry. I don't have anything to report tonight, I'm sorry. But it,
Earth-shattering.
nothing earth-shattering, but it is on file, thank you. But our next meeting is on 10/5, Wednesday, the 5th of October.
Okay, thank you. Budget and Finance?
Thank you. No report this evening, but the next Budget and Finance meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October the 11th at 6 p.m. And then moving to Project Oversight, no report. We did originally have a meeting scheduled for this evening, but we canceled. There was no need to meet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honored citizens?
Yes, tonight I'm honoring all our Sharonville grandparents. Grandparents' Day was Sunday, so I know we have at least 4 or 5 of us on the council who are grandparents, and I just think the grandparents play such a big part in their grandchildren's lives, and we need to honor them. So that's what I'm honoring tonight.
Thank you, very nice. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be Tuesday, September 20th, 4 p.m., Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
Thank you. And a reminder that budget season is coming up, so when you're in your committee meeting, start talking about budget items, 5-year plans, projections, things like that. Just start getting that out in the open. Rule suspension motion for first and only reading with immediate effectivity of ordinance 2022-45E, 2022-46, 2022-48E, 2022-50E, and Resolution 2022-R20E. Is there a motion? So moved by Mr. Lovett, second by Mr. Tankersley. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and that does carry. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to our new business, please.
All right. First and only reading of ordinance 2022-45E, amending 2022 appropriations for various funds and authorizing in advance of funds and authorizing the Safety Service Director to accept bids and enter into a contract for the Main Street Bridge and dam improvements and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-45E? So moved by Mr. Coulter, second by Mr. Tankersley. Is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-45E has been approved. First and only reading of ordinance 2022-46, amending 2022 appropriations for the 707 tax rebate fund.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-46? So moved by Mr. Lovett, second by Mrs. Knight. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-46 has been approved. First reading of ordinance 2022-47, amending Business Regulation Code, Chapter 731, nightclubs and nightclub promoters. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2022-48E, amending Health, Safety, and Sanitation Code, Chapter 521.17, chronic nuisance property or premises, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-48E? So moved by Mr. Schmidt, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2022-48E has been approved. First reading of emergency ordinance 2022-49E, ordinance authorizing preliminary legislation participatory as required by ODOT for Sharonville to participate in the construction of decorative fencing on the Crescentville Road Overpass over I-75 and declaring an emergency, but that's just a first reading. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2022-50E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract with CT Consultants, Inc. for the engineering and design of fiber optic communication and traffic signal upgrades and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-50E? So moved by Mr. Coulter, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2022-50E has been approved. First and only reading of resolution 2022-R20E, resolution to appoint a chief executive officer, a chief financial officer, and project manager to submit a state capital improvement program application to the State District Public Works Integrating Committee and authorizing the execution of an agreement with the Ohio Public Works Commission for Mostella Road improvements and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2022-R20E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-R20E has been approved.
Thank you. It's an opportunity again for residents that wish to be heard this evening. Seeing none, is Is there any other matters that wish to be heard this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion to go into executive session regarding the Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 regarding discipline and employment? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Tankersley. Roll call, please.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yep. Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to go into executive session. We will not be doing any other business when we come out except for adjourning. I will give you a little hint. My mom lives in the country. She uses mothballs. She had to put them underneath her porch to get them to go away. They don't like the smell. So try that. It's a good old-fashioned country remedy, but it might work. I don't know. But good luck to you.